All right, welcome to Content Marketing. I'm really excited about talking to you guys about this creative strategy for advertising and public relations. Essentially, content marketing, which isn't new, I know a lot of us think of it as new, which isn't entirely new, is the process of planning and sharing content as a way to build relationships with an audience, sell a product, or cultivate a social media following. Essentially, rather than creating an advertisement for you in terms of your personal brand or an advertisement for a product, you're actually creating content that solves a problem for an audience. And that content might be entertainment, that content might be informational, but it's useful for your audience. So here are some quotes. I think I collected a couple quotes that I think kind of tell the deeper story of content marketing as kind of a current strategy that people are talking about. Obviously, like I said, this has been in place for a long time, but now we're starting to name it and talk about some of the channels and tools that you can use for this. This quote, "We need to stop interrupting what people are interested in and be what people are interested." This is really kind of the spine of content marketing, rather than, when we think of like a Super Bowl commercial, it used to be that I think Super Bowl commercials are a good example of they're moving in the direction of being their own content, right? They're intended to be entertaining. They're not just buying this ad time to tell you about a product. They're buying this ad time to either give you something useful, in most cases entertainment, but in other cases, something more, practical that you can use where you start to build trust with a brand. I'm going to talk through why it's relevant. All of these skills labs, we like to introduce content or the idea topic, and then talk about why it might be relevant to you or to anyone who's interested in upskilling. Essentially, studies have shown that engaging content impacts audience decision-making more than any other technique. So there's a high return on your investment in terms of content marketing. You can also use content marketing to build trust, because this is a way to create relationships. If you are sharing useful information, that is where you can start to build credibility and or a useful relationship with your customer. It also, like I said, I talked about, it establishes credibility and strengthens your reputation as a brand. And like I said, this can be for a product, for a company, but also for yourself. Some of these strategies could be applied to your personal brand. A couple more stats around content marketing. Over 41% of Americans use an ad blocker. And the kind of content marketing we're talking about gets around ad blockers. It isn't itself an ad. The content is what you're bringing to folks. Compared to outbound tactics, it costs 62% less, but generates 3 times as many leads. 70% of consumers prefer to learn about a product from an article rather than an ad. I'm sure there's a lot of psychology around that. And the average adult spends more than 20 hours a week with digital media, which means there is a lot of real estate for folks to actually start pushing and creating content in that digital media space. And that's where one of the things I want to make sure we have at the get-go is that content marketing depends on knowledge of your audience. I'm not going to get into those research strategies. That is an entirely different topic, but you have to understand who your audience is, and they are going to be the deciders in this. You have to tailor your content to the specific audience you're trying to connect with. Sometimes that's demographics. Sometimes it's a certain problem your audience has that you're going to solve. But content marketing cannot exist absent a strategy for a particular audience, regardless of size or regardless of what parameters around that audience are. But your content should be positioned to solve a problem for that audience. And again, by problem, I don't necessarily mean I need this thing and I don't know that I need it. It could also mean, like I'm trapped in this media space and I'm not entertained. So I want to start there. And like I said, we won't get into the audience research stuff. That's another skills lab that we should probably plan, but audience is core to content marketing. Here's another quote. I'm just going to move my little guy up here. "In today's industry, meaningful content is a must. Your potential consumer wants and needs to feel in control of their shopping experience. Be genuine, because consumers know when you're too commercial and pushing to sell. So it is very important to create a bond with customers, educate and share your beautiful story through landing pages, videos, tutorials, infographics, and blogs. If you explain to your consumer you have what they need and they believe in it, you will have a lifelong loyal customer. And like I said before, this does sound like a product-oriented thing, but this is an approach to relationships that everyone can use. Even, for example, in the Career Center, we want employers to come recruit at DePaul. So what we do is solve a problem for them. Some of that means, hey, we would like to offer you a training on how to make sure you remove implicit bias from your recruiting. We're creating content for employers as a way to build a relationship with them so that at the end of the day, they recruit on campus. And that's a great example of how content marketing has existed for a long time, but we're talking about it really in these ways because now we have access to channels. I apologize, my children are in the background. I'm going to ask them right now to quiet down. Could you get out of here and quiet down? It's the new reality. All right, so we're going to focus on a couple different types of content marketing. And some of these types are channels and some of them are more about the frame that the content is taking. Sorry, one second, I'm just going to ask them really quickly again. Thank you, I'm sorry. All right, so we're going to focus on a couple examples or one example for each of these. And we are going to, let me look at the time already. All right, we're going to move quickly. So we're going to talk about social media. We're going to talk about infographics as a kind of content. We'll talk about blogs as a channel for content, podcasts as a channel for content, video as a channel and or form for content. And then we're also going to talk about checklists. All right, thank you for the note in the chat about kids at home. It's a reality. We're making it work. All right. What I think this might be my last quote. I'm not sure. I don't need to feel like this is just a selection of quotes, but I think this is relevant in terms of introducing social media. New digital habits have formed because of the pandemic. There's a renewed need for real-time connections. And as a result, there's been a rise in private social media communities. This trend will continue. Facebook groups, Slack, and Discord provide an intimate space for consumers to share similar experiences. This content is unfiltered, giving way to authentic relationships as brands elevate their communities. Executives will finally invest more in them. So we're going to talk about an example really quickly here. This is Pantone's social media account. They did a campaign around kind of in response to a need, right? There was this need during the pandemic last summer. There was a need for folks to feel like they were in the world, right? Because we're all trapped at home, you know, living on a screen. And Pantone rather, created this campaign where they invited folks to basically use some of their colors, which Pantone is like the #1 game in digital color, to use these colors to create these spaces. And it was a great example of, this was on Instagram. So let me go quickly. In some of these cases, we'll go to the links. This is actually an article about the Pantone Create Your World project, but they created these spaces and created a space for folks to interact with these colors and to interact with these worlds that solved a problem. I mean, the problem was feeling trapped inside and not feeling like we're engaging with the world and only our four walls. But then they built their brand and created stronger relationships. Pantone's Instagram and their social media they're doing this all the time. I forgot to add this link in here. Pantone Instagram. They are constantly responding to trends and encouraging a lot of user-generated content. And that's something that's important too. Of course, they're using influencers, but they're also using user-generated content. So you can see they have this design for fashion with Pantone Color of the Year 2021, and they're encouraging users to enter this contest and to talk about fashion and color. And that's just in response to, that's another example of like the getting users to authentically engage in things that they're interested in that correlates at all with your product. So fashion and design go together. But that's a good example of using a social media channel to both get user-generated content and to solve a problem that users have. Oh, you want to go here. All right, let's go back to this guy. And like I said, we're going to go quickly, and this is why I send the slide deck with you guys. Infographic, now this isn't a channel, although we are talking about YouTube here. Infographics represent a format that can be useful as far as sharing content. We've got these great stats here too. Our brains are hardwired to prefer visual cues, and website viewers spend around 10% more time looking at visual content than reading. People follow directions 323% better with text. And infographics can help you show up in Google's image results. And we're going to talk a little bit about snippets at the very end, Google snippets, but this is something to think about. Not only are people visually engaged primarily, but they're also, the systems we're using, like browsers, also encourage, this is going to happen, it's just going to happen. They are also encouraging users to visit sites that have more image-based content. So this is a link to an article about this infographic. So essentially, this company who provides services around data and around infographic design created this beautiful infographic that then they shared as content that could lead to customers using them to create infographics for themselves. And they used a lot of these brands as a way to engage more interest, because maybe I'm more interested in knowing how things shifted on YouTube. And this kind of content could create customers for them. And they're a company called Visual Capitalist. And so in this case, the content they're producing is the content that they would like you to pay them to produce. But I think it's a good, successful example of how an infographic could serve a need in a lot of different ways. Maybe you create an infographic around some of the data points around content marketing because you're a content marketer or you're in a marketing role and you would like people to share and see your content. And sharing is definitely a big part of this. Social media is always going to be a channel that some of this content needs to live on. In addition, you're going to get posts like this where you're going to have maybe this is part of their blog where they're sharing this information. So the channels will vary, but the content will be useful across multiple channels. All right, now we're going to go into blogs. Blogs are a channel for content, obviously. So a company might have its own blog as a way to post content that gets them more traffic. Some stats for you on this one. In 1 minute, almost 1,400 blog posts are published. Blogs still account for the vast majority of content marketing. And you don't need to push your products when you are an industry expert. And that's primarily the examples we're looking at are companies that use their blog to create a reputation of being an expert for the service that they're providing. Our sample here, uh-oh, that link didn't work. All right, let me go to it then. Buffer blog. So the Buffer offers a whole tool for content management. So their blog, they really prioritize creating useful content for the people who would choose to use their services. And so that's where audience is really important. If you have a blog, you're going to create content for the audience that you want to visit it. Now, just as an example, even if you're a fine artist and you have a blog, you're going to want to either create content for people who will buy your work, or you'll want to create content for curators or gallery owners who would want to sell your work. And that's the strategy, is knowing, okay, if I have visitors, who do I want to visit here in a way that makes sense for me in terms of pursuing my professional goals. And so many companies have their own blogs. Deloitte does a really good job of this. I mean, Deloitte's entire reputation is based on their Deloitte industry trends content. I mean, but this is another example of a company that prioritizes content as a way on their blog as a way to establish a particular reputation. All right, let's go to the next one. Let me get back in presentation mode. Oh, sorry. Canva is so great, but it doesn't make it that easy to get in and out of it. All right, so podcasts are another space, and obviously you can buy ad space on a podcast, but a lot of folks use podcasts as a way to, again, establish that reputation, either create a reputation as an industry expert or create an identity around the work you do. I'm going to take a quick look at some of these stats. The podcast right now, I mean, obviously they've been growing in popularity and there's probably some ups and downs, but particularly during times of commute. And I'd be curious to see a podcast where maybe, what, I don't know, we're all trapped at home, so we have to do something to entertain ourselves. But podcasts really were and are the go-to during a commute. So there is this whole population of people, some of whom you would want to target, who are moving between doing dog walks and going to and from work, who you can connect with. The nice thing about the podcast format, it is more conversational and it is more intimate. So if you have a very micro targeted audience, you just think through like, what would they want to listen to? And what kind of thing would get them excited about either connecting with me as an industry leader or, building my brand in whatever my field is. And then this other data point, according to a BBC study, podcasts improve brand awareness by 89%, brand consideration by 57%, brand favorability by 24%, and purchase intent by 14%. Now, the only caveat I'll say here is that that's a very delicate line you're going to have as someone using podcasts to build a brand. You have to make sure that you're bringing engaging content that they're not getting elsewhere. And that's a high bar because it's a space where there's a lot of competition. So this is an example of, let me see, did this link not work either? I'll have to redo these links before I send this deck. GE actually created its own podcast called Life After. And this was truly like kind of more of an artistic project. Let me see if I can see if this link works, GE Podcast Leader. It was more of a artistic exercise that built brand. This is from 2016. They have a new version of this, but it was earlier in the podcast stage, and it was a way for them to use entertainment as a way to kind of hit on their brand a little bit. And they wanted to use storytelling that connected with technology, which of course is the GE brand, the mix of those two. All right, let's get back in. I love that these are 30 minutes because they don't, like, we just run through some of this content. Here's another quote for you. The opportunity to secure uninterrupted and focused time with consumers will still exist, but it's going to be more challenging than ever to act upon. In order to capture hearts, minds, and ultimately wallets, the smartest brands will realize that they must stop thinking like advertisers and start thinking like media companies, giving core audiences value beyond just the products and services they provide. You've all seen a Tasty video. There's no question. Like, they're all over social media. They're on Instagram, they're on YouTube, they're on Twitter. But what's interesting in terms of them as an example is that they are a content producer, right? That's their main work. But if you go, I don't know how, sorry, my screen fully changed. Something happened. I got to get back into my Zoom. Okay, sorry. Let's see if this link worked. Yes. So this will take you to the Tasty YouTube page, but you start to see how this content is monetized. Sorry, I have to turn that audio off. They have a store, obviously, with merch, but they also have a lot of like shared programming and like paid ads and stuff like that. But they are primarily a content producer that uses video to connect with you. And then at the end of the day, there's monetization behind the scenes. Here's some quotes about video as content. And according to HubSpot, and HubSpot, I'll talk about HubSpot in a minute, but HubSpot offers free content marketing certification. Anyway, HubSpot is a company that sells its product in the way that we're talking about, where it offers certification as the content, and then they sell their product because it's certification using their tool. Anyway, in their Not Another State of Marketing report, the 2 types of video that are most popular are promotional and brand storytelling. According to Curata, the 3 most effective types of video are customer testimonials, tutorials, and demonstrations. I know you've seen all of this through influencers on social media, and they all benefit the consumer. So this is really the key to content marketing. It has to benefit the consumer, whatever you're doing. And then Apple, Google, and Facebook are investing big money in original programming. So this is the next level for video, is for brands to pay for and create their own original programming. Not every brand's going to do that. You're not going to see that, but that's kind of the next step for certain brands that kind of do vacillate between offering a product and then offering entertainment through its own channel. Let's go to checklist. This is my favorite one because as an educator, this is a low cost content solution. So they're great content assets because they're easy to create and easy to promote. And they really do, like, checklists offer a very like human solution. You know, they give you the feeling of being in control and accomplishment. They're easy to read and follow. They provide valuable information. You can do checklists on any kind of topic. I'm sure you've seen, like, BuzzFeed does a lot of checklists. I pulled this one because I think it's a good example, because Money Magazine, excuse me, monetizes this content by selling products, by selling both ad space and products that they offer, their own media content. So if we go to this checklist, now this is obviously a big strategy for them because they have a gajillion of these checklists, but they're all very practical. They're all very actionable. And what's great is I'm here, maybe I'm going to subscribe to Money. Maybe I'm going to look at their top picks for mortgages, where I'm sure there's some money exchange around that. Or maybe there's going to be ads right here at the top, paying too much for car insurance, where I got here because I wanted this and I can use it to plan how I'm going to pick a college. But now that I'm here, there's a lot of stuff for me to look at, and there's a lot of ways for them to make money. They're also totally creating a brand in terms of like practical money advice. Like, that's kind of the core to this kind of checklist. But like I said, a checklist can be a little more abstract. It can be a little more creative. Like, as someone who's interested in a marketing career, you could create your own checklist that you used for how to generate new ideas that you could share on social media or on your website or on LinkedIn, that would start to build a brand about you as someone who knows something and someone who can make something that works as far as content goes. All right, let's get back in. I want to make sure we have time for questions. Oop, I went to Money again. I clicked on the wrong image. Featured snippets. So I mentioned this before. Let me make sure I can move this thing. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen, this image from Google, this, and you can opt out of these in your browser, but this content is going to appear in these featured snippets. Google is pulling blog posts, they're pulling image-based content. This is a space for a browser search that is now very, very open to content. So that's just something, like, you're going to have more results in the featured snippet if you're using a content marketing strategy. And they feature them just, you know, before the organic search. They can show up in a lot of formats. And here are the most common featured snippets: paragraph featured, image featured, YouTube featured, and list featured snippet. So these are types of content that are going to work really well in a snippet, and you can't undervalue that real estate. I know that I've clicked on a lot of things from that, if only because it looks different from the other search engine. Like, it's very clickable. I'm sure there's a lot of like UX around featured snippets, and there's probably, you know, some ways to control them as well. All right, so a couple of ways to upscale. We want this to be very actionable for you if you're interested in this topic. There's a really great article I'm going to share with you guys called Content Marketing: A Comprehensive Guide, that really just introduces all the meta language and the concept around content marketing. HubSpot Academy offers a free course that offers certification. It goes into the why and how of content marketing, and then it also teaches you the HubSpot platform. Now, there are a lot of different platforms, but HubSpot has established itself as one of the leaders. If you're a current DePaul student, you have free access to LinkedIn Learning. So this link will take you to a couple content marketing courses. There's a lot of them on there. Some are half an hour, some are 3 hours. Just know that those exist. There's also a Skillshare opportunity. Skillshare sometimes offers trainings. This is specific to a better blogger, becoming a better blogger. And this is a free course. Quick Sprout, now I'm not even remembering which one Quick Sprout is. Oh, it's just a lot of, this is a great space. Now, this is a great example of content marketing. This is a company that works in content marketing, and they have collected a place for everything, like everything about content marketing, best courses, etc. And then truly, if you don't have all the time to invest, Neil Patel, who I'm not even going to get into his bio. He has a YouTube channel full of videos on content marketing. So you could teach yourself quite a bit in this space and know the words to use and understand the tools and understand the formats and the channels by upskilling in these areas. Let me actually show you a couple things that I want to make sure you guys know about. The Career Center offers all of these advising services. We also have 2 credit courses that we're really excited about. If you're going to be job searching, why not have 10 weeks of accountability in your job search? We have a cool strengths class we offer too. We have an internship class. We've got a couple skills labs remaining for this quarter, including product management. That's an interesting career space, as well as project management and design thinking. I'm going to be doing an interviewing workshop, I don't know, a couple weeks from now. Also, we want to make sure you're joining career communities. This is all our sales pitch at the very end. Lastly, career library. We want to make sure you know it exists. Over 50 handouts. In addition, this YouTube channel, which I'm going to link to right now. For some reason, I'm signed in from multiple devices real quick. Okay, so check it out. We put all of our skills labs, well, they're not all up here yet, on a channel on YouTube. So we're really excited about that. I want to have a minute to take questions. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to also at the same time send out a quick poll. We like to get some feedback from folks. Okay, so I love these comments in the chat. Very exciting. Google gives you a free $100 advertisement credit for SEOs when you create a website through them. I did not know that. And the store option on the Tasty page on YouTube. It's really merch, but I will put it in the chat real quick and see if it comes up for you there. And while you're answering the poll questions, you're free to throw it in the chat or unmute and just ask a question. I'd love to answer any questions you guys might have.